Uh, Chris, you saved me. You saved me. Holy shit. Uh, this is exactly what happened last week. So I don't know why, but my computer keeps defaulting my audio. I should have learned from last week. I went 7 minutes this time. At least it wasn't 27. Holy shit, man. What is wrong with me? I went through everything too. I was sitting here for a while, like just looking at things, making sure. I did 2 podcasts this week and everything was fine. So I don't know what's happening. It must be because I'm going through some other way when I'm doing the other podcast. Anyway, thank you, Christo. I appreciate it. I didn't even notice again. I'm going to have to make a big note for myself. I don't know why this has happened to me a few times now where the audio just doesn't want to default correctly. Anyway, like I was saying, back to it with sound. Thanks to Christo, my brother-in-law. Much love. UFC X was cool. I had a really good vacation. This is what I was talking about. I was going into everything, and of course, the audio demons hit me again, but that's all right. Let's just get into it because I already talked about all the other stuff, and it was just really talking about what happened throughout the week. So now that I'm saved, let's get to it. Let's show some of the pictures from the UFC Expo, or let's start with the Hall of Fame, actually. Here we go. So the Hall of Fame took place in the T-Mobile Arena, which was pretty cool because that's where most of the fights happen. So I was happy to know that I got to finally go in there. I have yet to be at a fight there. So I got to actually go in, see it, check it out, experience the stadium or the arena, and it's pretty badass. And the seats are actually not bad. They didn't have anything real close up, like open, but from far away, wasn't too bad. And the seats are pretty comfortable. I could see how it'd get crowded with the crowd in there, but you know, it was a good experience, and it was nice to go in there finally after watching all the events on TV. But yeah, the Hall of Fame was supposed to be Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, Jens Pulver, Cowboy Cerrone, and then in the fight portion of it was the Robbie Lawler versus oh man, why'd I just the Red King, what's his name? Damn it. Ugh. The audio problems kill me. My brain. Whatever. Either way. Everyone showed up except for Anderson Silva. I guess he has some ongoing issues with the UFC, which I guess I don't blame him when it comes down to some of the problems he had in the past. So Anderson didn't show up, and I was kind of sad about that because, you know, I don't think I've ever seen him up close in person. But everyone else was there, so it was a good experience. Oh, except for Robbie Lawler's opponent, who I cannot seem to pinpoint his name, and it's going to drive me nuts, so I have to look it up. And I'm going to feel stupid as soon as I realize Rory McDonald. There it is. Rory McDonald. Now, apparently he's retired now, and he's into being completely, like, private now. So he doesn't want to deal with any of it. So he didn't want to deal with the media, all the questions that would come to him. So he didn't show up for the Hall of Fame induction of his fight with Robbie Lawler. But, you know, Robbie was there, and that was cool, especially since he was actually retiring this weekend. So let's get into a couple pictures here. And, you know, just took pictures from far away, but some, you know, most of them came out pretty good. I appreciate my wife. Her camera phone is better than her camera on her phone can zoom in way better than mine, which, you know, my phone has other features I like better, but the camera's not as great. So she took a lot of pictures for me, which was awesome. And, you know, a lot of them came out pretty good. So this is the Nogueira brothers, Low Nog and Big Nog. They got the Forrest Griffin, what's it called? Like community award, basically, because they do a lot for their community. They do a lot for charity. So that's what they got. recognized for and got inducted into the Hall of Fame for that. So, you know, if you know the Nogueira brothers, they're old school, badass. And Forrest Griffin was the one that, you know, handed out the award to them, because obviously it's named after him. So it was cool to see them. I hadn't seen the Nogueira brothers in a long time. And then, while Forrest is all over the place all the time, but it's always good to see Forrest. But then we move on to Jens Pulver, finally getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. I feel like he should have been there a long time ago. He's one of the pioneers. He's one of the vets. He's one of the greats. He's one of the guys that started the lower weights in the UFC. Him and BJ Penn had some great fights. He had some good fights all around. Former champ. He now does the UFC Twitch stream, and they do watch-alongs, and they watch old fights, and he breaks them down and stuff. It's pretty cool. And he actually got me a little emotional, man. The story he told, well, his speech was basically talking to his younger self, and the reasoning for that is because I guess when he was like 14, he had a gun to his head and was about to commit suicide. So and his whole speech was talking about how he was happy he didn't pull the trigger. He was thanking his he was talking about, you know, not I'm sorry, I'm losing my track of mind because I was thinking too far ahead. He was thanking himself for not pulling the trigger. So, you know, I was kind of like, damn, man, this is like, it was a great speech, and he's really passionate about what he does now. He's happy where he's at in life, and he had cameras following him for the Where Are They At Now type show that they do. So yeah, it was a cool thing to watch Jens Pulver get finally inducted into the Hall of Fame. Then we had Jose Aldo. Man, he was so emotional. Like, it was tough to hold it together. Like, he came out and he just like put his head in, you know, his face in his hands and bent over and was just bawling. And it was so dope. I mean, just watching Aldo be that emotional about it, it means that much to him. He's one of the greats, man. He had such a long standing title reign. He was one of the greats overall. His leg kicks are legendary. A lot of great fights. Even came back for a second kind of good run in there, and he just held the title forever. So it was good to see him get inducted as well. Then we move on to, of course, my favorite. Well, my top favorite of all these guys, Cowboy, man. Cowboy. I just can't say enough good things about him. I love the dude. I've followed him for so long. The Tap Out show back in the day, you know, I was a huge Tap Out fan. I got a gigantic Tap Out symbol on my leg tattooed, thanks to my brother Christo, by the way, who did a great job on that one. Yeah, and it was so dope to watch Cowboy getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, because he's like I said, I followed his career for so long. He's one of the great fighters, always entertaining. Anytime, any place, anyone basically is what he always said. He would fight all the time, even if people thought he shouldn't be fighting. So it was well deserved getting him into the Hall of Fame, and he's doing great now. He's doing movies, and he's on TRT. He got hair plugs, all kinds of shit. I don't know. He got hair transplant. All kinds of crazy things I've been hearing about him. But he's doing great. He looks great, and you know, he's Cowboy being Cowboy, had to chug on that beer while he's up there getting the Hall of Fame jacket put on him. Cheers to the Cowboy. Gotta love the dude, man. He's always down and always being himself. And then finally in the Hall of Fame for his fight with Rory McDonald, which was amazing. I suggest going and checking it out. Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald is one of the bloodiest, one of the craziest, one of the fucking most legendary fights you could watch. I would definitely send anybody that doesn't watch fights that's interested to go watch that fight. Yeah, maybe the bloodiness will turn you off a little bit. It was pretty savage. It was pretty dramatic. But it was a hell of a spectacle of a fight. and it's just something that'll go down in history for sure. And that's why it's getting put into the modern wing of the Hall of Fame, or one of the fights. And Robbie Lawler is definitely a future Hall of Famer, because this was his retirement weekend. He made his last fight in the his last trip into the octagon for the UFC and MMA this past weekend, and it was good for him, and we'll hit on that here when we get to the recap for UFC 290. But yeah, Robbie Lawler, man, he's such a good dude. He looks like a goddamn savage, but he's quiet and he's kind of reserved, but when he talks, what's up. One of the things I remember from him is somebody asked him something about if he was happy that he took somebody's like undefeated record or something to that effect, and he said, no, I'm just happy, or he said something like, no, I just here to take his soul. And he said it with like the just stoic, calm look on his face, like no rage, no animosity behind it, just straight up savage. Robbie Lawler is one of those guys you do not want to fuck with, and he's a badass, and he's a legend, and he's going to be up there again to receive that Hall of Fame jacket and trophy when he actually gets inducted for himself being a legend. So now we'll move on to UFC X 2023, happening in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Convention Center, which was a big ass place, like gigantic. It was a pretty cool setup. What I was saying earlier when my audio was not working again, it was a little bit disappointing because it was so crazy, man. So many people, such gigantic lines everywhere for everybody. Anybody that was signing autographs, anywhere where there was a fighter, there was lines and lines and lines and lines. Now, it was kind of that way 10 years ago when I went in 2013. I took my kids with me. We had a good time. We got to meet a bunch of cool fighters. And then I was able to get into lines like maybe 2 hours tops of waiting or something. And it's worse than Disneyland, damn it. But we got to meet a bunch of fighters and stuff like that, and it was cool. Up close, personal, it was nice. And this time, man, the first day was a gigantic failure. I mean, I got some good footage. That's something else I was saying earlier when my stupid mic wasn't working, was that I got some video footage, but I'm gonna have to take some time to do some editing and all that. I just haven't had time this week. It's been crazy. So I'm gonna try to get that done this weekend and make a little video and probably just release it out on the YouTube channel. So don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when that video comes out. Hopefully I can get that done this weekend. Either way, it'll be out soon. But yeah, took a lot of good pictures again there. Got some up close and personal ones, meeting a couple fighters. But we'll start off with my actually right outside T-Mobile Arena, the big UFC, the iconic thing that they do everywhere. You see pictures of this all over the place, but man, it's really cool to be there and see it just out there and be right in front of it. Pretty badass. And then part of the experience was getting in a cage, which was badass as well. Myself and my wife, we took a picture in there. I have a video from the GoPro that I will hopefully get together soon, and I took a little video like walking in, kind of a POV of walking into the cage. I took a little walk around the cage and then walking out of it and stuff, close up of the mat and the cage itself and stuff like that. Was pretty badass. That was fun. And then the legend. I met him 13 years ago. I met him in 2013, 10 years ago. And we kind of recreated the picture. I should have put up the old picture here too, but it was like, nah, this one's good. I didn't flip off the camera in the first picture, but I did in this one. It was badass. Cowboy's so down to earth, man. He's so cool. And it was fun meeting him again. After all this time, me following the sport even closer, and his career for the rest of the 10 years after and everything like that was just badass. Super humble dude. Super cool. Makes you feel comfortable talking to him and everything. And he's really appreciative of the fans. So much love to Cowboy, because he was the best experience out of all the fighters I met. You know, everyone else was just kind of quick, going through, but it's always the best meeting Cowboy. I showed him my tap out tattoo, and he was laughing. He thought it was dope. I told him I was following him since, you know, back in those days, and you know, he was pretty hype about it. He thanked me a bunch of times too for just saying all kinds of good stuff. Like I said, super humble and really good dude. So anytime you ever get to meet Cowboy, you know it's gonna be a good time. So yeah, and we also got to meet one of the champs, Aljamain Sterling. This one was in a different kind of booth. You know, he looked a little agitated. I'll say that. Unfortunately, we were up front for this one, so we were like the fifth and sixth people to get up there. And you know, it looked like they were rushing him around and stuff, so he looked a little agitated, but the picture came out great. I didn't have to take this picture, they took it for us. As you can see, I got my camera in my hand and stuff. It's kind of funny. But yeah, Eljo was cool too, man, and it was dope getting to meet one of the current champs. And then as I'm walking around, you know, I took some pictures, and I got Anik and Florian did their podcast live. Bilal Muhammad is the guy in the middle. Florian's the guy with the Hawaiian shirt, and then of course everyone knows Anik because he's always on the broadcast. But it was cool to watch their live podcast and check out how the pros do it and stuff like that. And I listen to that podcast every week. They have a show 2 times a week, and I listen to every minute of both shows that they do each week. So it was cool to get to see that up close and personal. And then moving on to Bilal again, as he's up there signing autographs, taking pictures. Now, I never got up to this stage. I tried twice. Twice on the first day. We waited in lines and never got there. It got cut off. So they don't really cut the line off where they think it's going to be time. They just let the line get as far back as possible. And then integrated with all the general admission people is the VIP people. So they let like 6 or 8, 10 VIPs in, and then they go, okay, let's get this line of these people in, and then they go for another 4 or 6 people VIP. Then so I don't know how it could be done any better, but there's so many people. It is what it is. Just couldn't make it up there. So there's a lot of fighters I didn't get to, you know, meet and greet or anything like that, but we got some pictures. So we got the King Bobby Green. He was badass. He was all over the place running into the crowd, and you know, he was hyped over everything. So that was a cool experience, just watching him up there, being appreciative of everybody. As you can see here, all smiles all the time, and which is a little different than this guy, fucking Derek Brunson. He just sat there and didn't do a whole lot and didn't seem very excited. He seemed like he was being nice to everybody, but he just didn't seem too into it. I guess sitting there for 2 hours signing autographs and taking pictures is just not his thing. But he was there and he did it all. Then we had Caitlin Chukagian. She was there. She looked like she was having a good time. So that was cool. And then we got another legend, Don Fry. He was up there doing a podcast as well. You know, he's usually on the MMA Roasted podcast almost every time that Adam Hunter puts that podcast out. He's got Don Fry on there with him. So it's kind of funny to watch him do it in person. Don Fry looked like he was enjoying the hell out of himself. He's a funny dude. Legend to legend, Mr. Freddie Roach, the boxing trainer. You know, if you know boxing, I'm sure you know Freddie Roach. He was super cool. And he was just over there taking pictures with people, and I was happy to get a picture with him. Then we got to meet Gilbert Burns. Gilbert's super humble as well, and he was just, you know, having a good time too. Gilbert is one of those guys that is all about doing stuff for the fans too. He's almost as enthusiastic about it as Cowboy is. You know, he's got a little bit of the language barrier there. You know, it's like his English is so, but yeah, he was having a good time. It was cool. We got Glover Teixeira, former champ. He was doing a podcast as well. So they had like a main stage, and then they had the UFC Fight Pass stage, And on the Fight Pass stage, that's what they were doing, like podcasts after podcasts. So it'd be cool to grow this shit and get there one day. That would be a feat. But you know, gotta make it happen. Gotta keep growing. And then another champ, Isreal Adesanya. Those lines were insane. I tried very hard to get it. I wanted to go and see Izzy up close, shake his hand, but couldn't get there, man. It was nuts. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, another former champ. She was really cool, but she seemed preoccupied. Something was going on with her phone because she was on her phone like every other second. But she was still really happy and really cool with all the fans. Calvin Kattar, that savage. It was cool seeing him there. A lot of people, like, it looked like he was excited that a lot of people knew who he was. So that was cool. T-City, Brian Ortega. I got to see him a couple times because he was doing a podcast over on the side before he went up on this front stage. And then finally, we have Kamaru Usman. Lots of former champs or current champs were around, and it was cool to see them all. Usman was all smiles, but he looked very freaked out and like overwhelmed with all of the craziness going on. But like I said, I went to the press conference. That was another cool experience, getting to see that in person and, you know, listening to the fighters talk. And, you know, I'm used to watching it on YouTube on my phone while I'm walking around doing something. So it was cool to get to go sit there and check it out. And then on Saturday, we got to watch the fights at Stadium Swim at Circa Casino on Fremont Street in the old Vegas Strip. So if you're ever wanting to go watch fights when you're in Vegas, this is a dope ass place to go. You know, you got to shell out some cash to get, you know, a decent spot to sit. But, you know, you get to enjoy the pool. You get to enjoy some good drinks and food. Their drinks are really good, actually. And then you get to watch this gigantic wall. And actually, not at this point, because obviously you see their Padres on for baseball. But when I got there, the Braves game was on, which was badass. So I was happy. I get to watch some of the Braves game, and I'm watching the fights on this gigantic screen. Nobody could get in my way because it's so damn big. So that was a really cool experience. I recommend it for sure. Go check it out. Even just to go swim at that place is badass. And then, and there was like 6 or 8 fighters to the left of me sitting in one of those private cabanas. They would come out every now and again. Joaquin Buckley, Ode Osborne, Caio Borralho, and a couple other dudes were there too. I just couldn't get a good look to see who they were. So that was cool. Good experience. And we had fun there. So that was that. And like I said, I will try to get more video up from that. So moving on though. Big news going on in the combat sports world. Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou is official. It's happening. Full-on legit boxing match with one stipulation, which is so far they haven't announced that it's gonna be an official pro boxing match. So it won't go on their records as of right now, but that might change. I'd assume that's because the commissions don't really want to sanction a fight to be considered an official fight when Francis Ngannou has 0 professional fights and Tyson Fury's one of the best in the world. So I don't think they can justify that, but either way, this fight is happening. There was rumors going around about there being like a no knockdown rule and that there was going to be like possibly only body shots or some shit. Like it was going to be a glorified sparring match pretty much is what was being said. But all of that has been kicked to the curb. They're fighting with, you know, official gloves, 10 rounds. It's going to be an official fight except for not going on the record. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows about that one? But I'm excited. It's going to happen Saturday, October 28th in Saudi Arabia, which, you know, I guess for now, Tyson Fury is having trouble getting into the US. I'm not sure why. And, you know, they're both international fighters anyway. So it's happening in Saudi Arabia, kind of similar to what happened with Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. So that's happening. So everybody that was talking shit about Francis Ngannou maybe fumbling the bag and you know, not staying in the UFC, yeah, everybody's got to eat their words now because the shit's official. It's happening. So hopefully nothing keeps it from happening. That's a couple months away or a few months away. But anything can happen between now and then. So hopefully nothing does happen. Hopefully it all stays together and we get to watch that. Because I know for me, I'm down. I'm ready to watch it. I'm going to watch it. If I got to pay, I got to pay. It is what it is. From what I'm understanding, though, Francis Ngannou is getting paid quite a bit of fucking money for this. And, you know, Tyson Fury, of course, is going to get paid. So, and then it sounds like there's also a rematch clause for both of them in the contract. So no matter what, we'll probably see a second fight. And then who knows? Maybe they'll try to mix it up and do a little bit of a crossover fight and maybe try to get Tyson Fury in the cage. Who knows? Especially since Francis Ngannou is mixed up with the PFL and he's now under contract with them. So with that being said, you know, Jake Paul did the whole what was it called? Super fight pay-per-view like division or whatever. So maybe this is how they're gonna put that together. So that'd be pretty cool. I mean, something different. You know, Tyson Fury's legit. It's not like he's some, you know, fucking weirdo YouTuber. So, and he's a fighter. I mean, we'll see. It didn't work out for James Toney when he got into the UFC and tried to fight, but he was fighting a wrestler in fucking The Natural, Randy Couture. So that was a tough one for him. But I think Tyson Fury would take it a bit more seriously than James Toney did. And yeah, we'll see. Maybe that happens. But a little bit of an early touch on UFC 290 here, but this has been big news because Dricus du Plessis beat Robert Whittaker, and then Isreal Adesanya came into the cage and they had a little altercation. And here's a little bit of, you know, how that got started, what's happening, stuff like that. So we'll get to that right now.
A few more to get in that top 20 and start making my way to that title, because that's ultimately what I want within the next 2 years. I want to be the first real African champ, trained, born, bred in Africa.
Well, I mean, those
First real African fighter born and bred in Africa, resides in Africa. That's kind of what he just said. So that posed a problem. And yeah, you'll hear a little more now.
to Africa. I'm the African fighter in the UFC. Myself and Cameron, we breathe the African air. We wake up in Africa every day. We train in Africa. We're African born. We're African raised. We still reside in Africa. We train out of Africa. That's an African champion, and that's who I'll be.
All right.
Oof. So that's him talking about being a real African because he resides in Africa and all that shit. And obviously, his coach, he's talking about Isreal Adesanya because that's a champ right now who it was African born, but he doesn't live in Africa, right? I guess he left when he in his younger years. Kamaru Usman at the time was a champ from Nigeria. So, but he doesn't live there. And then Francis Ngannou is also an African fighter who doesn't live there either. So that's why he's going through all this saying, and he's from South Africa. Dricus du Plessis is from South Africa. So that's why he's able to say all this stuff, and even though it's a little bit controversial. So we'll see what Izzy has to say now.
So I think it's one for the history books. Well, Dricus, if he wins, I'm gonna punish him. I'm gonna torture him. But I'm gonna make sure he wins so I can step in the cage and just call him a nigga the whole time. What's up, bitch ass nigga? What's up, nigga?
You want to be one of us?
Yeah. I straight up. What's up, nigga? What's up, bitch? And we try to talk shit. I'll be like, what's up, nigga? Huh? Bitch ass nigga. Oh, I've did it like in the shower. I've seen it so many times, man. So many fuck.
So this was a podcast he did with his brother, I guess. And this is before the DDP and Robert Whittaker fight. So, I mean, he's kind of already telling you what he's planning on doing. And it's just all spanning from all this stuff that you just heard DDP say beforehand.
Times, I swear, I just walk in the cage and I can just feel myself. I feel myself like turn. I feel myself turn, and I'm just there, like just feeling it. I'm just like, what's so?
So here it is. This is actually, if you were watching the fights, you saw this, and everyone's jaw just dropped when they watched and listened to everything that happened here. But if you didn't get to see it, there's some beeping out, but you just kind of, you know what he's gonna say because he just said it. So, oof, I'm African, but I ain't no brother of yours, son. Like, oof, that's I've seen people get dropped for saying stuff like that. But you know, he's got Izzy in his face. He just got done fighting. Maybe this wasn't the best time to do this. Izzy came in hot. I guess he had to talk Dana White into letting him get in there, and he told him, "I promise you I won't touch him. I promise you I won't go after him. I'm just gonna talk." Now, when you're talking and getting in someone's face like that, you don't know what the other guy's gonna do. And DDP didn't know that Izzy was coming in. As a matter of fact, he turned around and like pointed at something and realized that Izzy was standing there, and then he stumbled on his words. So he was just like, what the fuck? Taken off guard, of course, you know, it's like, he ain't scared. You know, he's ready to fight him. But it was just kind of a weird situation. And some, you know, this shit went down. Let's
jump a few more.
So there it is. You know, Izzy said it. I manifested it. He sure the fuck did. We saw the clip before that where he said what he was going to do. And he's a man of his word. He went in there and did it. Dricus, I don't know, man. I feel like I don't know. I kind of feel like it's one of those things where he kind of fucked up. I don't know how I feel about all of it. You know, it's like they are both from Africa. That's all there is to it. Perfect. But then if you look at the history of things, and if you know the history of things, I you know, I don't know everything. It's just I've heard enough happening since this happened. And it doesn't look good for Dricus. Like, it's just not a good look, man. Like, call the dude out and say, you know, Ariel Helwani said it best. He should have gone out there and just said, I'm going to be the best African champ. I'm going to be the best guy from Africa. That's it. Don't say anything about being the real African, because it's just not a good look, man. I don't think it is. Dana White didn't give a fuck about any of this. He just said, hey, to him, it's good promotion. You know, there's people talking shit online about Izzy coming out and saying the N-word over and over and over again. And Dana was just like, he's black. Like, he can do what he wants. And he's the champ. And he makes me money. That's what he meant. So, yeah, this is something to watch out for. Apparently, they are definitely making this fight. And that's cool, man. I'm ready to see it. A lot of people are talking about how DDP can actually have a chance to win this fight, but I don't see it, man. He did look better than his last fight when he fought Derek Brunson. I think it was Derek Brunson. Dude, he gassed so hard. And apparently he had a deviated septum that he got worked on before this past fight with Robert Whittaker. He looked damn good against Whittaker, man. I was sad to see it because I like Robert Whittaker a lot. Bobby Knuckles is just badass, and I can't believe that Dricus took him out like he did. But this fight was fucking fantastic. And then to watch the drama unfold after, Izzy was hyped, was pumped, was fucking just adrenaline rushed. And he came in there and did what he said he was going to do. So it's pretty sick, man. It's pretty intense. Moving on, though. This motherfucker. So Sean Strickland was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And this was last week. So I'm a little behind, but like I said, I didn't do a podcast last week. And to be fair, I wasn't going to talk about it. Because why? Why would I talk? Why would I bring that on myself, right? But I actually listened to the podcast today. The whole thing, start to finish. So, I don't know. All I've ever done is talk shit about Sean Strickland, right? And, you know, Rogan is a fair person and he gives people a chance, and he has his MMA portion of the podcast. So when it comes down to it, he wanted to give him, he won his last fight in great fashion against Abus Magomedov. So, and he looked good in his fight. So I was struggling on whether I wanted to cover this, especially because after hearing Strickland on Rogan, I get him a little more. Okay, I'm a fair person when it comes down to it, for the most part. I am an asshole. It is what it is. That's why I talk mad shit. Because here's the thing: I was faced with a dilemma when I was in line at UFC X, because I was in a line, or I was gonna get in a line where Sean Strickland was supposed to be up there on the stage. And I just was talking to my wife, and I'm like, what do I do? This is the only line I would want to get in for the 3 other fighters that were up here. Which it was supposed to be Mr. King of Cringe, Henry Cejudo, which, whatever, former champ, double champ, triple C, whatever. That was cool. Chito Vera, and oh God, who was the other one? I can't remember now. But Henry Cejudo didn't even wind up being up there, which I'm pissed about, because I got out of line. I decided not to go up there or even try to, and it wound up being Charles Oliveira, which that would have been badass. But anyway, Sean Strickland was supposed to be up there, and I was like, what do I do? Like, what if I go up there? What am I gonna do? I'm not gonna talk shit to the dude. Like, who the fuck am I, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't like the guy, but I don't need to, first of all, he's a professional fucking fighter. He's got skills. It doesn't matter how big I am. He does this for a living. He does it every day. Dude will whoop my ass. You know what I mean? What am I'm gonna be that fool at the expo that gets, I'm not gonna do that, right? So I'm like, what would I do? I'm just thinking about it. And I'm like, here's what I would do. I would go up there, and I would just probably walk right by him and just be like, nah, I'm not, no. Or I would just be like, hey, I respect your skills in fighting, but we don't agree, so I'm just gonna pass you by and then have a good day. Because like I that's how much I don't like the guy. Like, if he was standing in front of me and wanted to like train me or something, I would say no. Like, that's how it is. If he wanted to give me $100 and an autograph and a picture, I would say no. I don't want that from him. I don't like the guy. I just don't like the guy. I can't stand looking at him. I don't like him. I don't like anything he says. I just don't like him, man. That's all there is to it. And I'm not gonna be that fucking guy. They're not there for that, man. I appreciate the fact that these people all came out and signed autographs and took pictures, took their time out of their day to do all that, and I appreciate that. But I'm not, so if I have nothing nice to say, I'm not gonna say it when it comes down to that. Based in that situation, what would he have done if I would have been the sole person to just walk by him, though? Like, I don't know, man. Either way, the line seemed too long. I just decided not to go. I was like, why even put myself in that situation, right? So then I listened to the podcast today, and I was just like, fuck, man. I get the dude a little bit better now. I still don't think that I like him. He talked a lot about all of his struggles and his bad childhood, his bad upbringing, but he contradicts himself a lot, man. He says some shit that I just don't like all the time. And he talks about how people these days are shitty people because their kids are going to be shitty because they're being brought up by TikTok and social media and blah blah blah. But I'm like, bro, none of that was big when you were coming up, and look at you. To me, you're not a good human. He was boasting and bragging and talking about damn near killing a dude one time. He constantly was saying, oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, I'm a piece of shit. And Rogan was like, I think you use that as a crutch. I think you use that as a shield. And I don't think you know how to let that go because you're scared of something. And he's like, I think you're right, but I'm a piece of shit. And he just kept going. So it's like he knows what he does. He knows, and he claims. Here's the thing that really got me. He claims to be a comedian. He claims that a lot of the things he says, he's just going for the laugh. I don't believe that whatsoever. Go listen to the podcast with Rogan from a couple days ago, or it was just released a couple days. I don't know. Who cares? Go on Spotify, go to Rogan's podcast. You'll find it. It's like one of the top 5 or 6 right now. Just in order. I don't know. I just don't really know what to say, you know, like a lot of the things that he said. I don't want to say I felt bad for the guy at any point in time during it, but I understood a little better. But I still don't like him. And that's all there is to it. I don't know what else to say. I'm struggling here to not just call him a piece of shit and a bunch of other names like I usually do. I want to be fair, and I'm trying to be understanding, but I just don't like the guy. I can't like him. I don't know how to. I don't know how to get past the bullshit that he talks. And he's, you know, there's a couple things I agreed with. You know, he said he has no problem with this and no problem with that. There's a lot of things that I didn't expect him to say that he said. But the way that he acts all the time, the things that he says all the time, and on Twitter and at press conferences, to the media, interviews, the things that he says, I just can't do it, man. I don't like the guy, so fuck him. I tried to give him a chance, you know. I tried. I just can't get past it, because I know that anything I hear from him from this point on is still going to be the same bullshit. So, I just don't like him. That's all I'll say about it. Moving on. Oh, he has to act in order to make money for someone else. Well, okay. So I get what you're saying, Magix. Magic said, sounds like he knows more about the inside of the industry, is struggling with how he has to act in order to make money for someone else. But here's the thing. That's what he does all the time. Like, what you're explaining right there is what Colby Covington does. That's Colby Covington to a T. He changed his persona, and he changed who he was. If you look at him from way back when he first started, he was about to get cut from the UFC. I'm talking about Colby Covington right now. He was about to get cut from the UFC, and because they said he wasn't exciting, that he was a boring wrestler. That's all he did. And his fights were boring. People didn't like him. Blah, 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 blah. So he decided to go play the heel. He decided to take the WWE role of a heel. And everything that Magic's just said right there is what Colby Covington did. And I hate him more for it. Yeah, make your money, bro, but I don't have to like it, and I don't like it. And Colby just goes to a place it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to go there ever. And it's just stupid. And Sean Strickland, you know, the things that he's saying, he's just talking about his life from back in the day. So unless he put on an act, which is not what people do on Rogan, yeah, it's just dumb. So I still say fuck him. And I still wouldn't get a picture with him or take it or have him autograph anything. I would still walk right by him. Just be like, I'm out. Like I said, I would tell him I respect his talent and his fighting skills, but that's it. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Ultimate Fighter. Ultimate Fighter 31. Season 31. Chandler versus McGregor. So 2 episodes have gone by since the last time I spoke about this. And it was a doozy for a episode 6, which was 2 weeks ago. Lee Hammond fought Kurt Holobaugh, and that was Lee Hammond was supposed to be the guy that got Conor McGregor his first win. Didn't turn out that way. Unfortunately, he got submitted, and yeah, there was drama. Afterwards, that same thing that you have seen, that clip that you've seen everywhere of Conor McGregor pushing Michael Chandler by the face, that happened that night. And that was 2 Tuesdays ago. So Conor was pissed. He's just frustrated, man, as you can see here. The frustration set in. This was after Lee Hammond got submitted, and he knows that he's pretty much gonna have a big goose egg, because that was supposed to be his cash cow right there. That was supposed to be the guy that got him his win. If no one else won on this show, it was supposed to be Lee Hammond, and it didn't happen. So the vets are proving to be better than the prospects. That's all there is to it. It's unfortunate for Conor, but he did choose the second group of guys. He could have chose to have a mixed up team of prospects and vets, and he chose to have all prospects. So it's on him. This past week was Jason Knight versus Landon Quinones. And once again, Jason Knight got the win for Team Chandler and the vets. So unfortunately for Conor, he's 0-7. And actually at the end of the fight, Conor said, you know, what happens if I don't get any wins? And they're like, I don't know, maybe we ask some of the guys to go over to your team. I don't know, we've never had this happen. So it'd be the first time in the history of the show, 31 seasons, that someone does not get a win. And according to what Chandler said in an interview I saw, sounds like maybe he does get a clean sweep. And you know, this reaction right here shows everything about Conor and how he is with this season of The Ultimate Fighter. And if I remember correctly, the last season he was on, where he coached against Uriah Faber, he didn't get skunked, but he definitely lost that season as well, if I remember correctly. So it's a damn shame. I don't know what to say about it. There's not much to say. Conor's doing it to himself, and it's not looking good. And I don't think he's going to get a win this season. So we'll see what happens after the first round of fights are over and they move into the next round. But as of right now, it's looking like a big goose egg for him. All right, so let's move on to this banger of a card from last weekend. Holy shit. If you didn't watch the fights, you should watch them. They were fucking fantastic. This is probably one of the best cards that I have seen in years. Like, I wasn't sure if, you know, like I said, I went to Stadium Swim at Circa in Las Vegas, and, you know, the atmosphere was dope. You know, good music playing in between the fights, you know, instead of listening to commercials or, you know, bullshit filler time from all the commentators. They played music. When we got there, the music was playing nice and loud. Big screens, fun, just fun. You know, good atmosphere, everybody swimming, drinking, having a good time. I was like, well, is this just because the atmosphere is badass, or is this because the fights have been good? You know, even watching the prelims, man, like, everyone's cheering. Of course, you get the ignorant dumbasses that are like, kill him, rip his head off. Someone's like, that's a guillotine, and it's not. Or they're like rear naked choke, and it's actually a guillotine. It's just, so cringy. But, you know, that's what happens when you get a bunch of people that don't watch fights all the time. It's fine. You know, I don't know everything there is to know about tennis. So if I watch tennis, I might say some stupid shit. Except I just don't say anything if I don't know about it. So, but not everybody can act that way. Either way, good time. Great card. Great fights. The undercard, man, it starts off with a decision. But then the second fight of the night on the early prelims, 17-second KO by Jesus Santos Aguilar over Shannon Ross. I didn't even get to see it, but I heard all about it. It was apparently a badass knockout. I mean, there was finish after finish after finish. I can probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3. There was only 4 decisions on this card. Everything else was a TKO, a KO, or a submission. That makes for a damn good card. Let's see who else on the undercard. Alonzo Menefield got a win by submission, guillotine, over Jimmy Crute. And then Jimmy Crute talked about having to take a step away from fighting because apparently he's having some kind of personal issues and doesn't know who he is outside of fighting, and he's having an internal struggle with that. So it sounds like, it sounds like he's gonna just take a step away and, you know, take some time to himself and, you know, gather his thoughts and just figure things out. He's you know, coming off a loss, it's got to be an emotional thing. So, yeah, hopefully he comes back. I don't think he's retiring. I think he's just going to take a break and take some time away, which can be good for guys sometimes. So, especially after a loss. So then we had Denise Gomez versus Yasmin Uruguay. That was a TKO by punches in the first round. So that was another exciting one. Looks like after that, all right, so then the main fight on the prelim card to lead us into the pay-per-view was none other than Robbie Lawler. Look at that. At the top is how it started, and at the bottom is how it ended. Robbie Lawler gets that fast TKO win, or I mean fast KO win over Nico Price, 38 seconds in the first round. Like, so we started off with a 17-second KO, and then in the middle of the undercard we went to a 20-second TKO, and then we ended the prelims with a 38-second KO by the legend, future Hall of Famer, and now retired Robbie Lawler. Nothing better than to watch a guy who's on his last fight, you know, retiring tonight no matter what happens, and he gets out of there with a 38-second KO. Look at this shit. Robbie Lawler looking like the Robbie Lawler of old. Didn't even need to follow up any punches after he dropped Nico. He knew he was done. Jason Herzog gets in the middle, calls the fight. Here's a little slow-mo action. Different angle. You know, they just kind of tied up. Nico Price is just going for it, and Robbie said, nah, man, it's my night. Called it a career and ended in the best way possible. That's the way that every one of these guys should go out. You know, if your career has been as good as Robbie Lawler's, and, you know, he's a former champ, he's just one of the pioneers pretty much. Like, he's just one of the guys that a lot of people got into watching MMA because of him. And if they didn't get in it because of him, you soon found out why he was going to be one of your favorites. Robbie Lawler is such a badass, and I was so happy to see him go out this way. Like, I got emotional watching him watch the montage that they put together of. Thank you to Robbie Lawler for all the memories, all the good fights. One of my all-time favorites, no doubt. He's always been a favorite of mine, win or lose. I hated watching him lose sometimes when he lost the belt, when he was just struggling. You know, he had a resurgence after leaving the UFC the first time. He went over to Strikeforce, I believe, and fought there for a little while, and then came back to the UFC and had a hell of a run. And man, I loved watching this dude fight. He's just a savage. He's a fucking, he's a hell of a fighter. He's a legend, and I can't wait to watch him get inducted into the Hall of Fame for the fighter that he is, and not just for any fights that he had. So thanks again, Robbie Lawler. I appreciate all the memories, all the good times, and all the good fights that you provided for us. And yeah, another good one down. Hopefully he has good luck in his coaching career. Says he's going to coach after this, so I wish him all the luck in everything he does after this, and I hope to keep seeing him around the sport. So let's move on to Bo Nickal with another 38-second TKO by Bo Nickal. Follows the legend. First fight on the main card. He's going against the undefeated 7-0 Vel Woodburn, who, you know, I'm not sure he was at the level of Bo Nickal, especially after getting knocked out for in 38 seconds. But here's the real-time action. Fucking Bo Nickal, man. Who knew he had hands like that? Apparently his mom's was a boxer, like, whatever. I don't know. But the dude has just crazy wrestling and grappling skills, and then he comes out and shows what his striking can do. Stands on his feet and throws punches with Vel Woodburn, who looks like a fucking, you know, pretty impressive athlete. And, you know, he's debuting in the UFC on a short notice fight. a lot of way that a lot of guys get into the UFC. I hope they give him another chance after this and give him another fight. But Bo Nickal, just the hype train continues. The hype is real. Bo Nickal shows that he's well-rounded and gets that 38-second knockout, which is pretty badass. And it was a fun fight to watch. Speaking of fun fights to watch, Dan Hooker is always involved in a fucking fantastic, exciting fight. You always get your money's worth when you're watching a Dan Hooker fight. And this night was no different because him and Jalen Turner put on a hell of a show right away. I think it was at the end of the first round. Hooker put Turner in a fucking rear naked and pretty much, he was seconds away from going out. Jalen Turner got up looking like he just woke up from a nap. And I can't believe that he didn't get put out. And then we could actually hear him saying that he was done in between rounds like 2 and 3. But he still got out there. Still made it all 15 minutes. It was a fucking war. But Dan Hooker came out with the win. It wasn't a finish. It was a decision. But it was a split decision as well. Jalen Turner still put up a fight. Dan Hooker wasn't completely dominant. It was still a good fight all the way around. This main card was fucking fantastic. Like, there was a little bit of downtime in parts of this fight, but man, watching how bloody Dan Hooker was, his hair, he had the bleach blonde hair and it was red by the end of the fight. So congrats to Hooker on a great fight. It was the whole fight. Jalen Turner too, man. He's a fucking animal and he stayed in there, made it a great fight. Moving on to Dricus du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker, which we know the outcome of this because I said it earlier. But, I had to still show it. Watching DDP drop Whittaker like this, man. Whittaker looked good at first, and he came out looking game, looking ready. But Dricus looked like a whole different fighter from his last fight. He won his last fight, but it wasn't impressive. And this time, his gas tank looked way better. Dricus was gassed as fuck after like 2 minutes of the first round in his last fight. And then he just walked around with his hands on his hips for the rest of the time, pretty much. I don't even remember how. That's how fucking annoying it was. I don't even remember how he won that last fight, but he did. Actually, I guess I could look it up real quick. But yeah, it was against Derek Brunson. It was TKO corner stoppage in the second round. So yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It only went 2 rounds, and fucking it looked like after the first 2 minutes of the first round that DDP was not gonna make it. But in this fight, man, he looked like a whole different fighter, and he worked Robert Whittaker. And I was sad to see Bobby Knuckles get dropped and get finished like that. But I know he'll be all right and come back. I hope this doesn't deter him too much. But yeah, it put out a new opponent for Izzy, and they have history as we saw earlier. So that should be pretty exciting to see what happens with all of that. So moving on to the co-main event, the first title fight of the night, Brandon Moreno, the defending champ, versus Alexandre Pantoja, which, since I didn't do a show last week, I'll give a little backstory. Pantoja's beat Brandon Moreno twice already. I keep saying Brandon, but it's Brandon Moreno. But Pantoja's beat him twice. Once was considered an exhibition because it was on the Ultimate Fighter, but he beat him there. And then in the UFC, in a regular fight, he beat Moreno there as well. So, Pantoja just kind of seems to have his number. But a lot of people were boasting about how good Moreno has gotten compared to the last 2 fights that he fought Pantoja. So everyone was thinking, hey, there's no way he's going to come in and lose again for a third time to, someone who seems to have his number. But, Moreno's gotten so much better. He has the belt. He's not going to give up that belt. But, Moreno gets in these wars. He had the quadrilogy with Figueiredo. So, he can't put it past him to drop the belt and try to come back and fight for it again. And Pantoja looked damn good. I think he got pretty beat up. I don't think, I know. But this fight was back and forth, back and forth. You know, Brandon Moreno is always involved in a crazy war. Like these small guys, what is it, flyweight? Yeah, flyweights, dude. These guys just don't get tired, and they beat the shit out of each other, and it was just insane. But Pantoja, man, he put the work in on the ground. Moreno was getting the better of the striking, but he still took a lot of fucking damage. I think Moreno gave more damage than Pantoja did, but Pantoja had more when it came to the scrambles, the grappling, the ground game, everything. But he still massive damage to Moreno. Back and forth this fight was, and in the end, Pantoja got the win and became a champ for the first time. And Brandon Moreno, I keep saying fucking Brandon, I don't know why. Brandon Moreno drops the belt again. So, are we looking at another quadrilogy? Because this would be the fourth time. I mean, technically it's a trilogy when it comes to, you know, looking at it as an official, you know, fight. It would technically be a trilogy fight for them. But it comes down to it, they've physically fought 3 times now, so it would become the fourth fight. A lot of people are saying that's the fight that should happen. Pantoja says maybe it's time to give the rest of the division a chance since he dethroned Moreno, and Moreno's been on top for a while. But who knows? I'd be excited to see this fight again because it was a damn good fight. And in the end, it was a split decision. So it's not like it was a dominant performance by either one. It was a split decision, and Pantoja came out with the win. Now, the main event. Volkanovski looking like a fucking world beater, because that's what he is at this point. Tied for number 1 in the pound-for-pound rankings after getting this win over Yair Rodriguez. And, you know, Yair came out with a lot of those crazy dynamic strikes that he does. Jumping, kicking, punching, you know, wild strikes from everywhere. I mean, he held his own in there, but when it came down to it, you know, in the 3rd round, Volkanovski just got the finish. Volkanovski gets on top of you, and if you cover up, he's gonna wail on you and drop as many punches as possible until he gets pushed off, as he did here by Herb Dean. And that's the end of the fight. And Volkanovski retains that belt, continues to be super dominant over all of his opponents, no matter what. You know, his only loss as of late being to Islam Makhachev, which he wants that back. He wants that fight back. It was a close fight. He held his own. A lot of people thought he won that fight to, you know, get that 155 belt. But who knows? We'll see if he comes back and is able to get that rematch and become a double champ. At this point, you know, I don't want to say that I didn't like Volkanovski. He was always fighting somebody I liked better. But at this point, I mean, I have nothing but love for Volk. I think he's a badass. You can't deny the skills, you can't deny the dominance, and you can't deny how much better he gets with every fight. Being tied with John Jones for pound number 1. He's been pound for pound number 1 before. And I think that he's just going to continue in this way. I'm just wondering who's going to beat him. Who's going to come and beat him? Who has what it takes to give Volkanovski more of a fight than everyone else has? Because, man, he has just been so dominant. It's fucking impressive. So, yeah, that about covers it for that fucking wonderful fight, man. I wish all the cards were that great. I wish they all were that exciting. I wish they all were. I mean, I could just only imagine what would have happened if we would have had a watch party podcast for that night. So it would have been awesome. It would have been a lot of screaming. It would have been a lot of jumping up and down, and I probably would have got real drunk. But it's been a while since we've had a watch party too. So we have another event coming up at the end of July, UFC 291. It's looking like I'm gonna have to be out of town for a couple weeks. I'm hoping not to have to be out of town over a weekend. so I don't want to have to go. Maybe I'll go for 2 consecutive weeks. I'm hoping to not have to be there over the weekend as well, because that'll put me out of town for the next fucking event, and that would suck. But if I have to, then I'll just do a watch party, and I will watch the fights while I sit in a stupid hotel room, because it's never fun when I go out of town for work. But either way, I think I got bit by a mosquito or something. My leg is itching like crazy. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But UFC 290, I don't know how the next card is supposed to be pretty fucking stacked. A lot of people thought it should have been in the place of this card, so we'll see if that one delivers just as much as UFC 290 did. Now let's move on. Last thing for the show, little preview. Yeah, we do, Magics. It's been too long, man. It's been a couple months since we've done a damn watch party, so I'm hoping that we get back to it this at the end of this month. I think July 29th is the next UFC. We'll see what happens. Moving on to this weekend's UFC Vegas 77 happening at the fucking Apex. As much as I don't know why that keeps happening. I don't know why they keep holding events at the Apex, but they do. Holly Holm returns after she's been out for a little bit. I can't even remember the last time she fought. It was March of this year against Yana Santos. So, a few months ago. Doesn't feel like... Oh, shit, yeah. That's right. We'll see if he's down. I don't know, though. But if Mike wants to show up, that'd be dope. Yeah, Holly Holm. Last fought in March against Yana Santos. Got a win there. But, Bueno Silva's been looking pretty good, too. So, we'll see what kind of fight this is. On the undercard, the first fight of the night, actually, early prelims, Ashley Evans-Smith makes her return after being out for a few years now. She hasn't fought since November of 2020. She's been riddled with injuries. She had a knee injury. She had a back injury. I think she had a neck injury. Like, this girl has been, unfortunately, injured like crazy. She's been doing a podcast, though, which is pretty good. Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl, where obviously they talk about fights because she's a fighter and she has a bunch of fighters on. But they also talk about sex, too. I mean, they talk about personal shit. It's actually pretty interesting. I've listened to a lot of it, but she hasn't been doing it since she started training for this fight, because obviously that's a pretty taxing schedule. And she's one of those types, she says it all the time, that has to really focus. So she's coming off of 2 losses. One being against her last one being against Norma Dumont, who's actually fighting on this card as well. The record doesn't look great. I mean, last 2 fights were losses. Before that, she had a win, and then 2 losses again before that. A lot of mixed up stuff. So I'm hoping the best for her. She's fighting Aylin Perez, who I don't really know much about, but she is coming off a loss as well. So we'll see what she has to offer for Ashley Evans-Smith. And if you're keeping track and wondering, Ashley Evans-Smith has an OnlyFans. Actually, I think it's called a Fan Time. I don't really know what that is. I think it's like an OnlyFans, but just go to her Instagram, check it out. Not bad. Let's see. Alex Munoz versus Carl Deaton. Tyson Nam versus Azat Maksum. Evan Elder versus Gennaro Valdez. Austin Lingo, who we've covered before, versus Melquizel Costa. This dude looks trippy as fuck. He's got face paint on. Like, not cool face paint either. In this picture that they show of him. I never even heard of him. And then Tucker Lux versus Melsik Bagdasarian. Yeah, that's all on the undercard. Check that out. Moving on to the main card. We have a Ray Longo, Matt Serra, guy here. Nazim Sadikov They talk. Matt Serra talks highly of him. So does Ray Longo. They call him Nas because obviously Nazim Sadikovic's kind of one of those names. He said I listened to a couple interviews with him today. Pretty cool dude. Sounds like he's down to earth and he's definitely a killer, man. He's like all about being ready and wanting to get revenge on Terrence McKinney for the loss that his teammate, what the fuck, I'm trying to think of his name, Matt Frevola lost to Terrence McKinney. So Nazim Sadikov is trying to get revenge for his teammate, but Sadikov, like I said, looks like a killer. Heavy hands, big punches. That's a nasty knockout right there. And yeah, again, talked highly by his team and his coaches. So we'll see how far that takes him against Terrence McKinney, who, you know, he's been making his way up and getting more well-known. 13-5. Coming off a loss, though, to Ismail Bonfim. Yeah. Other than that, he's got a couple losses in the UFC. Nothing too crazy. But, you know, this should be a pretty decent fight. I think that's a damn good way to start off the card. Nas is just out there to make it a dogfight, and Terrence McKinney's down to meet him there for that. So, moving on. Norma Dumont versus Chelsea Chandler. Don't get confused. It's not Chelsea Handler. Even though I heard a bunch of people joking about that. I think it was pretty funny too when I saw it. I was like, what the hell? It's kind of weird. But yeah, Chelsea Chandler versus Norma Dumont. Like I said, Norma Dumont beat Ashley Evans Smith, who is fighting on this card as well. She is coming off a two fight win streak so far, or yeah, in the past couple fights. She has a loss to Macy Shazan. Damn, it's been a minute. That Ashley Evans Smith put her on a 3-fight win streak until she lost to Macy Shazan, and then she went back on another win streak. 2-fight win streak, fought last in April. 9-2 overall. And her opponent, Chelsea Chandler, not Handler. Looking like she's 5-1, so not a lot of fights. Undefeated in the UFC, but she's only fought once, and that was back in October of 2022 against Julia Stoliarenko. That was a win by TKO punches, which is what you see here in this picture. And yeah, before that she was fighting in Invicta. Only one loss in her record overall, so seems like this should be a pretty good fight for the women in the featherweight division. Moving on to middleweight fight, Albert Duraev versus Park Jun Young. I think it's actually Junyun Park. I don't know, man. These Asian guys and their names, like, I don't know if it's always backwards or forwards or what the fuck. But it's tough, man. Fucking names. It's hard to keep them straight. But Albert Duraev, I think that's how you say it. Let's see. Oh, he's Russian. That would explain the beard. But he's 16-4. Let's see. He's got a loss against Joaquin Buckley, and then 2 wins. So he's 2-1 in the UFC. The picture here is from Dana White's Contender Series against Cal Betancourt, where he got the win to get himself into the UFC back in 2021. So he's 2-1, trying to go for his 3rd win against Junyun Park. Or Park, yeah, Junyun Park. Damn it, man. That is hard to say. South Korea is where he's from. He is 16-5 overall, and he only has 1 loss. Oh no, 2 losses in the UFC. Let's see, has he fought any big names? Marc-Andre Barriault and Eric Anders. He's got wins over both of them. So not bad. And he's on a 3-fight win streak right now. Last fought February of this year against Dennis Tulione. Oh, fuck, man. I don't know why I try even with these names. But yeah, there you go. Moving on to some more hard names. Ottoman Azatar. Fuck, man. Against Francisco Prado. There we go. I can say that name. Azatar. I think it's Azatar. The Bulldozer. 13-1. Fucking, that's what I need to do, is just look up their nicknames and call them by that. Ottoman, though. I'm saying Ottoman. Like it's a fucking footrest. Not Ottoman, you fucking idiot. It's Ottoman. Ottoman Azatar. He's German. That's why his name is hard. Anyway, he lost to Matt Frivola, who I talked about earlier. So he's coming off that loss. But before that, he was on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC. Even more than that, so all of his wins came out of the UFC. And his only loss has been in the UFC, is what I meant to say. He fought Kama Worthy and Matt Frivola, so not bad. And he is fighting Francisco Prado. Let's see, 11-1. Damn, these guys only got 1 loss as a piece, man. And both of them have only lost once in the UFC. So that's kind of crazy. His loss was against Jamie Mullarkey. So both these guys are coming off a loss. And that was his only fight in the UFC. All of his other wins have come out of the UFC. So he's looking for his first UFC win against Ottoman Azatar. It's a weird matchup at the, on that part of the card, which I would have thought they would put like Terrence McKinney and Nazim a little further up. But so there was some changes on this card, and Walt Harris was supposed to fight I don't remember who it was, but for some reason, I guess Walt Harris got flagged for a USADA fucking, he tested positive for something. He said it was a tainted supplement that he has used like his entire career, but he said that I guess it was never legal, I guess, by USADA. It's always been an illegal substance. He just, I guess, overlooked it, didn't realize it. Either way, he got flagged, so he's gonna get suspended, and that fight was off. So Jack Della Maddalena has been riddled with oh shit, I guess I should change it. Has been riddled with his opponents dropping out. I think this is his second opponent. It almost looked like he wasn't even gonna be fighting on this card. So they got him another opponent, and then they moved him up in the card. So now he is the co-main event at welterweight. Joaquin Buckley has been running around talking mad shit about JDM, saying, and I actually have video footage of him calling him out, telling everybody to tag him and Jack on Instagram and tag the UFC to try to get him that fight. But he wound up with a different opponent, Basil Hafez, who's making his debut in the UFC. Jack Della Maddalena is one of those, highly touted prospects, up and comers. Everyone's talking about him. 14-2 in overall, and he's definitely coming off a win. That's why everyone's like high up on this dude. He's Australian, even though his name doesn't seem like it'd be Australian. That's kind of weird. He's undefeated in the UFC, coming off Dana White's Contender Series in 2021. He has 4 wins, so he's 4-0 in the UFC. Last win being against Randy Brown. As you can see here, though, he's a good striker, but he has submissions as well. So his first 3 wins in the UFC were TKO by punches in the first round, And then his last win against Randy Brown was a submission by rear naked choke in the first round. So he is a fucking finisher. He doesn't like to go past the first round. I guess he hasn't really been tested when it comes to the UFC. In the Contender Series, though, he did get a decision, win all 3 rounds, and won that one. All of his other fights outside of the UFC look like they were mostly KO, TKOs, and submissions. Yeah, the only damn decision he has was that Dana White Contender Series fight, which is kind of crazy because that's where you really want to show out and get a finish. But if you're looking to fucking bet, you might want to, and win some money, you might want to bet on Jack Della Maddalena because he finishes people in the fucking first round, it looks like. And it's always by TKO for the most part. But let's look at his opponent who's making his debut in the UFC, Basil Hafez. He's 8-3 overall. Like I said, this is his first fight in the UFC, but he is on a 2-fight win streak coming from Fury FC. And it doesn't look like he's fought anybody that I know. So we'll see what this dude has to offer. His record is riddled with decisions, though, so that's unfortunate. But I mean, looking at this picture here from Fury FC, it looks like he's got some pretty heavy hands, and that's a hell of a punch right there. Or it's just a great picture, who knows? But I'm thinking he's gonna be looking to show out in his first fight in the UFC against a name that everyone knows, Jack Della Maddalena. And if he's been following the news, the MMA news at all, yeah, he should be coming out trying to get that win in a big way and make a name for himself in the UFC. Now, for the main event, Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I know that's not really how you say her name, but that's how it looks, and I'm just going to say it that way because I don't need to get all fancy with it. But Holly Holm, like I said, fought earlier this year. And I am so happy to play this clip because I do not like Betch Correia, and I'm glad she doesn't fight in the UFC anymore. But Holly Holm got that head kick on her, which is hilarious. Holly's record 15-6. She's coming off that win from March against Yana Santos. Before that, she had a loss to Ketlin Vieira. And then it's just like couple wins, a loss, couple wins, a loss, win, loss, win, loss. Kind of how Holly Holm's career has been overall. But she can't forget that KO win over Ronda Rousey, which pretty much spiraled Ronda into retirement. And Holly got that belt and became champ by head kicking Ronda Rousey and killing the hype. So that's something I'll never forget. I remember this night and watching this fight, which was really weird. I was watching it at someone's house that I'm not used to being at. But it was a kind of crazy fight. And then her opponent, Mayra Bueno Silva, damn good submission artist, Brazilian, so she's great at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And this is a knee bar from her last win against Lena Landsberg. She's on a 3-fight win streak. As well as the win before that was by armbar. And before that, it was a decision win over Yana Wu. So, she's another Dana White Contender Series fighter. But yeah, her first fight was against Jillian Robertson, which she got another submission. So if they go down on the ground, I think Holly Holm might have something to worry about. So Holly might want to keep it on the feet and try to get the best of her with that good striking that she has. Holly Holm used to be a professional boxer, switched up careers and became a professional MMA fighter, and is an ex-champ. So she's going to need to keep it on the feet. Otherwise, she's going to have a lot to worry about on the ground with Bueno Silva and all of those great submissions. And that about does it for UFC Vegas 277. Don't forget to watch that this weekend on ESPN Plus. I don't know what fucking time it is. I can look it up though. I hope it is a normal time fight, but I guess we'll see. my time. The main card will be at 7 p.m. So I'll definitely be watching. I don't think I have a lot going on this weekend. It's going to be a chill weekend considering I was gone for 9 days. Way too long for me. I was dying to get home, even though I had a great time. So I'm happy I got back, got to do the show. We're back at it. Like I said, I might be going out of town soon, but next week will be a normal week, and I'll be home, and I'll be here. But after that, you'll be seeing the generic background and stuff like that, because I'm sure I'll be out of town at least 1 week, if not 2 in a row. Either way, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining me in the chat. Christo, I appreciate the help and the heads up on the mic. I'm going to make a fucking note somewhere that tells me not to forget to check that my mic is working, because that's twice in a row now. But I'm glad it didn't keep up. I'm glad Chris was here to catch that for me, and I appreciate you, brother. Much love. Thanks to my wife in the chat and always supporting me and all the great pictures she took. I almost forgot that. Wait, what the fuck was it I was going to say? Ah, shit. Oh, my daughter's boyfriend, Dylan. When I was going over the Volkanovski fight, I totally forgot. He called that shit in the 3rd round. Yeah. I totally forgot to mention that, and I told him I would. Not that he's fucking gonna hear this. I guarantee he's not even gonna listen. He probably forgets. Either way, he did call it. We were texting while the fights were going on, because they were here at the house watching the fights, and we were at Stadium Swim. And yeah, I was kind of. He gave me his prediction, and it came out to be true, man. It was pretty good fucking call there. So big ups to Dylan on that one. And then thanks to you too, Magix, for joining me in the chat and keeping me company there. And thanks to everyone else for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow me on all my social media. Going Rounds Podcast everywhere except for Twitter. It's Going Rounds Pod. Facebook and Instagram are where I'm at mostly, but I need to make a TikTok soon. It's been a while. Either way, don't forget to come back and watch again next Thursday, 7 p.m. Time for that checklist. No doubt, Magix. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a fucking gigantic checklist. I don't know what I was thinking this week. I didn't do it, and Chris saved my ass. So thanks again. I'm out. Let me get my shit together here. See you next week. Peace.